Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about non-binary representation or X-gender representation in manga, so let's get started. The very first story that I want to talk about is called X-gender. This is volume 1. Volume 2 just came out and I'm so excited to read it. So the premise with X-gender is that you follow Asuka Miyazaki's life as an X-gender person in Japan and just see how difficult it is to find love as an X-gender person. So it has its funny moments, it has its sad moments, it has its confusing moments, and there's also a lot of education about, you know, not only X-gender or non-binary people, but also all these other, you know, minorities within the LGBTQIA spectrum as well. Like, it's a very informational manga. I was just, you know, trying my best to absorb as much information as I could. You also get a lot of these charts within the manga. So this one is about gender classification, but things being laid out like this for a parent or for someone that just wants to be more sympathetic and more understanding, I think something like this is just exactly what people need. Because even like myself, I have, you know, done my research, but there's still so much that I personally don't know. Here we have another chart about lesbian terminology. There's also a chart about transgender terms as well. So not only do you get a lot of education within this first volume of the manga, but you also get to navigate through Asuka Miyazaki's love life. I know I haven't done any speed dating, but damn, like just dating in your 30s. There was one of the mixers where they happened to go to a lesbian mixer because that's what makes them feel the most comfortable. And and all the girls at the mixers happened to be like 20-something-year-olds that were just interested in like very girly things, just like taking cute pictures for Instagram. Then you have Asuka Miyazaki just saying like, first of all, 20-year-olds aren't on my romantic radar. Like, they're just trying their best just to like suck it up. Just suck it up. Like, I feel so old being in their presence, but I just gotta suck it up. Maybe someone in this mixer will be my age. And they do happen to be someone who also identifies themselves as X-gender, but they just they wanted different things, okay? Not every person wants the same things. Asuka Miyazaki that has absolutely no interest in, you know, settling down and having a kid. The other person did want those things, so although, you know, on paper sounds great, like two X-gender people, like, you know, you still have to like be on the same page when it comes to like what you want out of a romantic partner. So yeah, you get to see a lot of that within this story as well. As much as I enjoyed reading about all the different mixers and, you know, all those awkward dating experiences, one of the chapters I really enjoyed was about having periods as an X-gender person, because for me, I mean, they're just a drag. They're completely a drag. I hate having my period. As someone who doesn't identify in the sex they were born in, I can't imagine having a monthly reminder that you have female reproductive parts in your body. You definitely feel for Asuka Miyazaki as they explain, you know, I mean, there's no ups when you have a period. It just freaking sucks for everyone. But yeah, it's just a whole different experience when you get your period as an X-gender person. If you want a very entertaining and informative read, I highly recommend X-gender. It was just, you know, Asuka Miyazaki is very, very charismatic, very expressive. Their artwork is also super cool, so I really recommend this one. Like I said, volume 2 just came out. I am so excited to read it. And volume 2 dives into the COVID world as an X-gender person. One of my most recent reads is Until I Love Myself. I got this literally a few days ago and I just had to read it right away. So this is another autobiographical manga story, much like X-gender, but unlike X-gender, This one is definitely a lot heavier. It's not as lighthearted and informational as X Gender. This covers a lot of sexual trauma, sexual harassment, sexual assault. So definitely heavy on those trigger warnings. So since this is an autobiographical manga, you follow the author, Pesuyama. And the first thing that you read is a very difficult conversation with a manga artist that they used to assist back when they were younger. And from there, you go back in time to when this whole thing happened and all the things that happened to them while working for this manga artist. The whole thing is very sad because you do have this up and coming manga artist in Pesuyama who is excited about being an assistant to this manga artist that their editor recommended, and the whole experience is just a nightmare. Just ends up being a complete nightmare. So the manga artist is just called X to, not disclose who that person was. And from the moment that, Pesuyama arrived, like, the manga artist didn't care. Didn't care at all. He was vile, he was rude, he would make these misogynistic comments and sexual jokes. And it didn't matter that Pesuyama just felt uncomfortable. Like, the manga artist just kept going at it. And when there's a power disbalance, like as an assistant, you don't really know whether it's your right to speak up, because not only are you speaking up against the much more popular manga artist that you're assisting, you also have your editors that you have to consider. Like, there's a lot of, a lot more people higher up in positions than you are. Sexual assault and sexual harassment for a cisgender person is tragic, it's horrible, but at the fact that Pesuyama is X-gender, non-binary, and had their whole sexuality also just made a complete joke, like, yeah, like, I know you identify as this, but no, you're not that, you're a girl. Like, that just adds more insult to injury. So throughout this part of the story, you get to see how dark Pesuyama's thoughts got. I mean, as a victim, there was a lot of victim blaming on their part, but honestly, can you blame them? Because they were constantly being put in very uncomfortable situations by their own boss. So yes, they describe the feeling when the mangaka touched them, in more instances on sexual harassment. It's a very serious read. Not only do you get to experience everything that happened within that time frame, but also the consequences of that. So after Pesuyama quits, there comes, the anguish of having to deal with all that trauma and all those emotions as well, and not having the proper support group as well, because Pesuyama's family isn't the most open-minded. They do have some friends, but still, it's a lot of baggage that one person is having to carry by themselves. Halfway through the story, Pesuyama meets a female editor who happens to be the complete opposite of the last editor and the last mangaka. So this editor, who is nicknamed like the chill editor, she happens to be the one that actually is willing to listen to Pesuyama's story, and she happens to be the person that tells Pesuyama to write their story. As difficult as it might be, there's someone that's going to be willing to listen to their story. In the story, you also get to travel back in time to Pesuyama's childhood, and you get to experience more instances of males that just cross their boundaries. So in this case, it's their childhood friend who decided to flip their skirt in front of the whole class. And although they do become friends, it wasn't as good of a friendship as Pesuyama hoped it would be. But not everything in Pesuyama's past is bad. You do also get to meet one of their best friends, which is this girl right here, this tomboy girl who has a very straight white smile. So she happens to be a character very important to Pesuyama's past, and they also happen to reconnect as adults as well. This character just doesn't give a shit about gender norms. Like, she's a tomboy, she'll beat up the boys if she has to, she sticks up to Pesuyama, like, she is just someone that you want to have in your corner. Like she's cool. She's definitely a very cool person. So they lose touch for a little bit, but then they kind of find their way back to one another. And although this doesn't happen to like the very end of the manga, but since this is just volume 1, so there's potential that we might see more of her in volume 2 of Pesuyama's story. The point of the story, like the title suggests, is Pesuyama's journey to love themselves and love the body that they were born with, and kind of just letting go of all the emotional baggage that they're carrying, with the help of, you know, supportive people like the chill manga editor, like the childhood friend that they reconnected as adults. So personally, I'm very much looking forward to reading volume 2. It's something different getting to read an autobiographical manga story like X Gender and also Until I Love Myself, because these are not fictional characters. You're reading about the artists themselves. And the last manga pick that I have is one featuring younger characters. So this is Love Me for Who I Am, which is a completed series with 5 volumes, and this is volume 1 right here. So on the cover we have our non-binary person right here. This is Mogumo, who is a very cute non-binary high school student, and this story actually has more than just non-binary representation. You also get a trans representation within this manga story. But let's talk about Mogumo, because Mogumo is super adorable. A lot of people confuse them for being a girl. Also, a lot of people in their high school misgender them as being a boy as well, because that's the body they were born with. So at the beginning of the story, Mogumo gets hired to work at a cafe with other cross-dressing boys. But there is a problem, because as we know, Mogumo is not a boy nor a girl. So you see very early on, Mogumo tries to explain themselves. At first, you know, they're not the most understanding, they're not the most receptive, and Mogumo just feels like an outsider once again. So you do see poor Mogumo just having a breakdown in the cafe, and this is the boy who actually goes to the same school as Mogumo and convinces Mogumo to work at the cafe because it's a very welcoming space. And although he had very good intentions, he wasn't the most understanding about what non-binary is and also what misgendering does to someone like Mogumo. But things start to look up for Mogumo because the boy is very determined to learn to understand what Mogumo is like and accept them for who they are. Like the title suggests, love me for who I am. So it's a very cute story. I really enjoyed this one. Definitely not as heavy as the first 2 that I mentioned. This has more of like, I would say kind of like those high school shoujo vibes. Also very similar artwork to like a typical like high school shoujo as well. And if you're curious about the trans character in the story, this happens to be Mei right here. She is super cute. She happened to be the one that was the least understanding at first towards Mogumo, because she thought Mogumo was a very cute looking female presenting person, but you later on find out that they happen to be one of Mogumo's biggest allies as well. Throughout the story, you get some very cute moments between Mogumo and the other cafe workers, including Mei. You also get some adorable moments between Mogumo and the boy. I mean, just look at how precious they are. So there is some romance within this story. So you do get to learn more about sexual identities. There are some touching moments as well, but overall, it's just a very pleasant read. It's very cute. The artwork is adorable. This is mostly a very lighthearted read, but the reason why I really like this is because it gives you non-binary representation for someone that is high school aged. And this series is suitable for teens 13 and above. So if you are young and you want to read about non-binary representation within your age group, this is a fantastic read. So that's it for this video and for my recommendations featuring non-binary or X-gender characters. This was a shorter video compared to the other ones, but my hope is that we get more of these stories published in English, so hopefully I can actually have a full video with 5 recommendations to share with you guys. The more people go out and buy these stories to read, the more likely we'll actually get more non-binary representation in the bookshelves. So It's very important to go out, buy these stories, read them. I'm sure you're gonna enjoy them and it's going to help someone in need so much. I will list these titles in the information bar below. If you happen to be brand new, make sure to subscribe to keep up with my content, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Happy Pride!